What's going on, everybody? It's the Oddball Sports Talk podcast. We got a good one for you today. We're going to be giving our underrated and overrated players of the league, our bold predictions for Week 11 of the NFL season, and then we're going to finish it off with some Brody Bombs. So starting us off, we got our overrated and underrated players. These are just two players that we think in the NFL right now that are extremely overrated or extremely underrated. Ben, why don't you start us off?
So I'm going to go with my first underrated player being Terry McLaurin. He's a fantastic receiver. I feel like he doesn't get the respect he deserves. Like, whenever you look at the top 5 wide receivers, like, rankings, he's never in the top 5. I think he deserves to be, just, like, with his production and his ability with what QBs he has. My second underrated player, I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson. I think he's done great this year, especially like just being a first-year player coming in. He was named starter, and he hasn't looked back since. He's had a couple hiccups, but I think he's doing a great job right now. And I think we can see a bunch of good stuff in the future. I like the duo between him and McKissick. And then my first overrated player is Jadeveon Clowney. He's done terrible this year. He's not living up to the hype that he once had, and he's not doing what he's like. He's not earning his contract at all, which is a really big contract. And then my second overrated player is gonna be Jamal Adams. I really thought he was going to be great this season in Seattle, and he's been a liability in coverage every single week, and he's literally just being called Blitz Boy because that's all he can do right now. So, yeah, I think Jamal Adams is really overrated.
Okay.
Yeah, Alex.
So I'll start with overrated. I also had Clowney. He's just not performing to what his contract is set at. He's got 14 tackles on the season, which is good for not even in the top 150 defensive players. Doesn't even have a sack on the year and has one forced fumble. He's just not contributing to that defense that's already struggling enough. And then second overrated player is going to be Marcus Peters. He's being outshined by Marlon Humphrey, when many would say that when you look at their two contracts, Humphrey got a new one now, but he needs to be stepping up and giving the same production that Humphrey is on the other side, which he's currently not. My two underrated players, I also had McLaurin, but I'll go away from that and go with J.D. McKissick. A very good receiving back. He's tallied just under 200 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, but he is averaging 4 per carry, which isn't hateful, but then his receiving stats are very good. He catches like 90% of the balls thrown his way, and he's a very good contributor to that Washington offense right now. And then my most underrated player, even though he is getting a little bit more hype as the season goes on because of his plays, James Bradbury. He's just not a player you hear about very often, especially in past years. And this year he's got the most passes defended at 14. He's got 3 interceptions and a forced fumble. So he's playing out of his mind right now, and very good for him in that Giants defense.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to start off with overrated. My first overrated, I have very strong opinions about, and that's Chase Claypool. For me, I think as somebody who gets as much hype as he does, he definitely hasn't necessarily backed it up consistently. My underrated player, spoiler alert, is T. Higgins. So just comparing him to him, he has the same grade as T. Higgins, is 74.6 on PFF. Outside of the Philly game, Chase Claypool has under 400 receiving yards. Should be nowhere near considered for Rookie of the Year. The fact that people say that is just ignorant. He's playing below average in most games, inconsistent. To me, good size and good length. If he's consistent, he's a better wide receiver, but for me, I don't get what all the hype's about. My second overrated player would be Ezekiel Elliott. He can't produce against top run defenses. He's lost a step. I don't know if he looks heavier. I mean, it might be muscle, but it looks like he's just running slower than he normally is. And he's just not the player that he used to be when he was drafted 5 overall or 4th overall. Moving into underrated, I've got T. Higgins. People want to rave about Chase Claypool and how good he's being in that Steelers offense. Well, for me, I think when you look at T. Higgins, you see a player who has another rookie quarterback throwing in the ball. For me, that's a huge deal. Rookie receivers who can grow with the rookie quarterback. It's an underrated factor in the league, and I think it should be talked about. He has great size, 6'4". He's on pace for 1,200 receiving yards. He's already got 5 touchdowns. I think he's just a great wide receiver that doesn't get talked about enough. Tight end. My next underrated player is tight end Mike Gesicki. I loved him coming out of Penn State. He's almost 6'7", huge. He's seen a bit of a decline in his production since Tua got under center for the Dolphins. Fitzpatrick definitely got him the ball more, but on the year he still has almost 400 receiving yards as a tight end, which isn't bad, especially in the Dolphins offense where they utilize so many tight ends and 2 touchdowns. So 2 great players there that I think deserve some more attention, and 2 players there that I think deserve less attention. Brody.
All right, so I'm going to start with my overrated. Right now I've got OBJ as one of my overrated players. Just since he's left New York, he hasn't been the same. This is his 2nd season in Cleveland. In 5 of his first 6 seasons, he was worth all the hype, having 1,000 yards in his first 5 seasons each year. His 6th season, with the Browns, not so much, had a little bit of a downfall. People still believed in him. He comes out this year, and he does all right before getting injured, but not the guy that he used to be in New York, and I just don't understand the hype around him still. Number 2, and before I go and talk about him, let me say I love his story and I respect him a ton as a human and a player, but I'm going to have to go with James Conner because Steelers running back, he had that great year when Le'Veon Bell held out. A lot of hype was built up around him. I just feel like he's never really gotten back to that level of play. On his career, he averages 4.3 yards a carry, which isn't bad, but when you consider the hype he gets, it's not elite, and I don't think he's a franchise back. And for the Steelers, I'd definitely be looking at trying to find a new back here in the next year or 2 because he's not the long-term guy for you. So moving on to my underrated, I'm going to have to start with Jesse Bates III. His value to that Bengals defensive unit is huge.
This guy gets it.
Well, here, I'll list the stats for you. So you got 64 tackles, 42 of those being solo tackles, 2 interceptions, and 12 passes defended. His value to this defensive unit, and those stats alone just tell me that he's a great player, and he can do a lot for this Bengals defense as he plays all over the field. His 12 passes defended is currently top 5 in the league.
Second.
Top 15 in interceptions, tied for 15th place. So look for more out of him as I expect him to boom here in the coming years. Number 2, I've got Darius Leonard. The stats don't lie. For a guy with as much defensive value as he has for that Colts roster, which, it's a small market team, so it's expected that he doesn't get as much hype as, say, Khalil Mack would. But he can play, and he can play at a very high level. I think he's a top 3 linebacker in the league. And I did some research, and looking at his 2-year splits in the league compared to Brian Urlacher, he averages more tackles a game than Brian Urlacher did in his first 2 seasons. Darius Leonard averages 6.5, and Urlacher averaged 5.9 in his freshman and sophomore season in the league.
I just have a comment real quick. I think we should just all agree in the fact that Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool should stay off of TikTok. Really annoying.
Agreed.
Not that good, and they're making themselves look like fools, and they're not being professional at all, actually. And I would also go as far to say as they're acting like they're the best receivers in the league when in reality they're not. So I just want to put that out there.
You can't flex on TikTok when your defense carries your team.
Literally.
Yeah, or when you have 2 receptions a game for -1 yards. But moving on, we're going to get our bold predictions of the week. So, Brody, why don't you start off?
All right. My first bold prediction is going to be dependent on if P.J. Walker starts. If P.J. Walker starts this Sunday for the Carolina Panthers, I think he's going to go off. We saw what he could do under Matt Rule at Temple. Played very well in the XFL. And coming out having something to prove. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I'm going to predict 250 through the air and 3 touchdowns under Matt Rule. I'm going big here. I really like PJ Walker. I think he's got upside. I think he's going to have himself a day if he starts. Number 2 for me is going to be Jared Goff on Monday Night Football. I think it's a big game playing against Tampa. I think he's going to show up under the lights and he's going to ball out. I'm predicting over 300 in the air, 2 or more touchdowns. I think Sean McVay is going to let Goff do what he wants in this game, and I think it's going to work out for him.
Wow, Jared Goff doing good on Monday Night Football. That's crazy.
I will agree with Brody's PJ Walker opinion. Obviously, the XFL is a lower level of football, but when you look at how well he played, man, he made those defenders look stupid. I mean, I really like what he did in the XFL. I'm super glad that he's getting a shot in the NFL, and I think if he does play, he'll do really well. Ben, who you got?
All right, so this bold prediction is coming from the Taysom Hill start for the Saints. All right, I want to change my opinion on who's going to win that game. It's going to be the Falcons, and it's not going to be close. Taysom Hill is not a good quarterback. You can't make your first start at the age of 31, okay? It's not a thing you can do and be a good quarterback. I think Jameis Winston should have had it, but bold prediction of the week is he throws 2 picks. He runs for 2 touchdowns, and the Falcons win by 2 TDs. And then my other one is the PJ Walker. I want to talk about that too. I think if PJ Walker starts as well, that the Panthers aren't going to do as well. Actually, I'm going to go on the flip side of that because well, yes, he was good in the XFL and at Temple. I think that Detroit has come a long way this season, and I think they're finally piecing some stuff together. And I just don't think PJ Walker is going to be able to keep up with Matt Stafford. I know Kenny Galladay's out, but he's been out for a long time now, and I'm pretty sure he wants a new contract, and he's kind of holding out a little bit too. So I would expect Marvin Jones to have a big game with at least 2 TDs and 130 yards.
All right, Boots, I got a question for you then.
What?
So, you don't think – okay, so you're thinking that P.J. Walker and the Panthers are going to struggle if P.J. Walker is back there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he did play under Matt Rule at Temple.
Uh-huh.
When he played under Matt Rule at Temple, he did really well.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think that even with Matt Rule as the head coach for the Panthers, it has no effect with how P.J. Walker is going to play?
I think he's going to play good. I just don't think he's going to be able to keep up with the veteran Matthew Stafford. I think he's going to have a rough transition in the beginning. I definitely think he'll do better as the game goes on, but the first 2 quarters, I think he's not going to do that great. And I think that's when the Lions are going to capitalize and try to run away with it. Plus, I love DeAndre Swift this week. He's a great back. He's been showing up the last couple of weeks, and I think he's going to have another big game as well. And I think Marvin Jones is going to show that he's a good receiver.
Gotcha.
All right. Let me just say one more thing, and then we'll get to Alex. For me, I think Philip Walker playing under Matt Rule in that same offensive system, it's going to give him some familiarity. And it's not going to be a typical backup quarterback when he comes in making stupid mistakes. I think the game is going to be a lot faster, but I think it's something that he's going to be able to adapt to. I think he has a good game, strictly because Matt Rule and that offensive scheme.
I got 2 different receivers as both my bold predictions. So this one's going to bail out some of you fantasy strugglers out there. Michael Thomas is going to have his first good game of the year. Over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Taysom Hill getting his first start. They're going to be looking towards their checkdowns rather than their deep balls, which we know Slant Boy is good for. So Michael Thomas actually gets good production out of a game this year. And then the Lions-Panthers game, DeAndre Swift's out on concussion protocol.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So they're going to have to turn to the pass, even they're already a pass-heavy team, and they're going to have to really keep using that identity there. So Marvin Jones also goes for over 100 yards with, I'll say 2 touchdowns. I like Hawkinson a lot, so I think he does draw a lot of attention from opposing secondaries which sets Marvin Jones up for good. So 2 receivers this week playing big.
I just want to make another addition to my overrated players list, and that's going to be Michael Thomas for the Saints. Yeah, he didn't deserve the 99 overall in Madden. Madden's terrible anyway, but he didn't deserve that shit.
Completely agree.
Also, Slant Boy isn't going to do well with Taysom Hill because Taysom Hill's going to get a little bit of pressure and he's going to fucking sprint down the middle of the field.
Yeah, but when that starts happening, they're going to be looking for a lot of short yardage plays, which we know he's good for.
I just don't understand why you would pick Taysom Hill, the dude with literally no experience. Like,
dude, I don't know. If
Big
Jameis
baby with some strong bold predictions.
like why would no? I just don't understand why you can have a pretty decent quarterback in Jameis Winston. I know he has turnover issues, but he's working with Sean Payton here, people. Like Sean Payton's with Drew Brees. He's literally been there since like almost day one. Like,
Boots, we've got a segment talking about this later in the show.
oh.
I will say, if Jameis Winston were to be the starter, my bold prediction would have been 3 picks from him. He just it's what he does. He turns the ball.
Right.
But the Atlanta secondary is so bad.
It doesn't matter.
So is Jameis Winston.
Us 4 could go out there, run 2 corners.
Jameis Winston got laser eye surgery. He's fine now, okay?
Who knows?
I don't know, dude.
Right, well, for my bold predictions, I'm going to go with the game that I will be watching. A.J. Green has his first breakout game of the year, silencing the haters saying that he's washed. I think he goes for over 100 yards and has his first receiving touchdown of the year. I think historically A.J. Green plays really well against Redskins. If you look back, I think it was 2012 or 2013. He had his first breakout game that kind of put him on the map as one of the best receivers in the league. I think back in 2016 when they played, Josh Norman couldn't cover him. I think this this football team defensive secondary is below average. I think the Cincinnati Bengals wide receivers are above average. If it's not A.J. Green, it's Tyler Boyd. If it's not Tyler Boyd, it's T. Higgins. If it's not T. Higgins, it'll probably be Auden Tate. And I'd even go as far to say if it's not him, it's Mike Thomas. Like
Mike Thomas, that's better than the Saints Mike Thomas.
Best
Mike Thomas in the league on the Bengals.
That Bengals wide receiver room has some depth, and I think they're going to have a good game overall. But I think Bro looks to A.J. Green.
Is John Ross
second bold prediction? Yeah. John Ross. I think John Ross is going to be a healthy scratch for the rest of the year. He doesn't want to play. Hurt his foot playing DB at practice.
Yeah, the DB. They had him playing DB because our DB depth was really lacking. That's why Tony Brown got to start last week. Oh my God.
My second bold prediction is going to be the opposite of Ben's. I'm going to say Taysom Hill has a great game, over 200 total yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm a big Taysom Hill believer. I truly was not surprised that he got the start over Jameis Winston this week. Sean Payton, if you look at the way he talks about him, he's been super high on him for the past 2 years now. He said in a past press conference that he was the quarterback of the future once Drew Brees moves on. I look for Sean Payton to get him involved not only in the passing game but in the run game. Some really nice play design by him, and it should be a fun game to watch. I'm looking forward to see how he performs. Moving on to our last – does anybody have anything to say about that?
Taysom Hill has not shown me –
Boots, we're going to talk about this in like 2 seconds.
Ever that he is worth being a starter. But go ahead, Brody. Go with your bombs.
All right.
Moving on to our last segment, we've got our Brody Bombs. This is Brody's personalized segment where he's going to have every week where he just gives us the top headlines, and we're going to each get 15 seconds or less to react to each headline. Brody, go ahead.
Before I start, Kobe, when you talk about that Bengals wide receiver room, Tyler Boyd is really underrated. I just want to put that out there. Tyler Boyd receiver. All right.
Man, speaking facts out here.
Really just an underrated receiver group as a whole.
Yeah, it really is.
How many T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd have how many yards combined together? They're like top 7.
I think it's
like 1,200, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
Close to that. All right. So Brody Bombs this week. Starting out at number 1, which we know Big Boots Baby feels very, very passionate about. The New Orleans Saints are starting Taysom Hill this Sunday over Jameis Winston. this move comes as a surprise of many of us, and the big question is, what does this mean for Jameis and the Saints moving forward?
But get Jameis out of there. If the Saints can't have faith in him, get him to the Falcons, man. Send him to the division rival. Matt Ryan's old. Jameis
Anyone?
Winston should learn from under Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, you know.
Yeah,
Alex, go ahead.
I think what this tells us is that Jameis Winston is not getting any better. They're clearly seeing something in practice that tells them we can go with Taysom Hill before we go with this guy. So I would assume he's heavily underperforming in practice reps that is making Sean Payton make this decision.
But he did well when he came in for Drew Brees at the end of the game last week.
It was a small sample size, though.
Yeah, very.
Well, for me, I think this means absolutely nothing to the fact of Jameis Winston. I think it has everything to do with Taysom Hill. I was not surprised at all. Sean Payton has been spitting with Taysom Hill for 2 years now. He wanted him to start in this game, and that's what he got. If anything, this just goes to how once again I think the Colts made the wrong decision in signing Phillip Rivers instead of going with somebody younger, like
Jameis Winston.
I
also just want to point out Taysom Hill has never thrown a touchdown pass. His stats are he has a pick and not that many yards. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about him.
I think with seeing that Jameis Winston was getting most of the starting reps, or not Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill was getting most of the starting reps, I'm going to agree with Alex here and say that Jameis Winston just hasn't shown getting any better whatsoever. And I think having a coach that doesn't believe in him and Sean Payton, because let's be real, Sean Payton is a football genius. And if he sees something in Taysom Hill that he doesn't see in Jameis Winston, he's going to start Taysom Hill. I think that Sean Payton's going to make the right move here, and Taysom Hill's going to have a great game.
I just don't like the statement that Taysom Hill is the quarterback of the future just because of how old he is, and he's not going to have longevity like Drew Brees, okay? He's a do-it-all type of player, which I respect, but that also leads to more chances for injuries and such. So I just don't think the statement that Taysom Hill is the quarterback of the future is very valid.
All right, moving on to number 2. Montrezl Harrell signs a 2-year, $19 million contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. This comes almost immediately after Dwight Howard flips his signing and goes to Philadelphia on the veteran minimum, which kind of surprised me. So now I'm going to assume that Montrezl Harrell is going to start, but I think JaVale McGee is still on the roster, and Montrezl Harrell just won the Sixth Man of the Year award. So what do you guys think about that?
Alex, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first. That's the important part there. He won the Sixth Man of the Year award, so I do probably still see him coming off the bench for them, giving players like LeBron and Anthony Davis a break, and not hurting the team, those not being low points in their game. So I think it's a great signing by LA, and it contributes between him and Schroeder. It contributes a lot to them trying to repeat this season.
That's if Anthony Davis resigns.
He said he is, but
well, he literally just said like yesterday that he doesn't have a team. So
I mean, he's holding out so he doesn't get another 1 year little deal. They're working on getting him a max deal, and it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I think it's just a good pickup by the Lakers. I think it's another person that can help defeat maybe what will be a super team in Brooklyn. But just overall good pick, Ben.
I mean, I don't think this does much for the Lakers, to be completely honest. I think Dwight, like last year, Dwight Howard had a great year with the Lakers, and then having JaVale McGee, that double big man matchup they had there, and then you got Anthony Davis and LeBron. That team didn't need much help to begin with, and I don't think Montrezl Harrell gets them that much more help. I mean, he's a solid player, but I don't think he's going to be like again, he won Sixth Man of the Year, which is great, but I've never been a big Montrezl Harrell believer, and I also just really don't like him. So that could be where my bias comes in.
Patrick Beverly was pissed.
Yeah, he tweeted that he was like mad, but then I think he sent out a tweet right after, and he was like wishing Harold luck in the Lakers organization. So
We all know the
butchered
Lakers
that
are the
look.
better team, so
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to the next one, we have a big time trade coming from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Steven Adams was sent to the Pelicans in a 3-team trade with the Denver Nuggets, leaving a solid starting 5 for the Pelicans now with Brandon Ingram, Eric Bledsoe, Zion Williamson, J.J. Redick, and now Steven Adams. You could even consider Lonzo Ball to be a starter. Does this trade make him a playoff team?
Yeah, it does. It gives them just another source of great rebounding and power down the post. And it's just another example of OKC just letting their veterans sit there until they officially have to go because the team's not helping them at all. I think OKC's messed up a lot of potential for their team in the last 10 years or so, that they definitely had a couple championships lined up that their front office let go.
Yes, I think it makes them a playoff team. Ben.
I think OKC is doing great getting all these first-round picks. I think they're going into a rebuild, and I like what they're doing getting all them picks.
I think this trade fills a gap that the Pelicans needed. This definitely makes them a playoff team. That's it.
Well, I think that'll conclude our Brody Bombs, and that'll conclude our podcast today. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. Hit us up on Twitter at odd_talk, and then or talk_odd. The Instagram is
It's just oddball_sports talk.
make sure you guys like and subscribe, and thank you as always. We'll see you later.
See you.